One of the real issues in today's comic book industry, as far as the direct market, is a lack of quality. Now, how could this happen? You have so many people in the comic book industry. They've been reading comic books their entire lives. Obviously, they're part of the industry. But I think it might be a little bit worse than you believe. We have a tweet from Tom Brevoort that really, it's pretty shocking if you ask me. And here to talk with me about that is our social media consultant, comic book writer on season 4 of Young Justice, Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing fantastic. My episode of Young Justice dropped last week. It's getting really good reviews. If you guys get a chance, pop onto HBO Max and give it a watch.
It was absolutely spectacular. We all dropped a tear for you here. We were so happy to see your name. It said written by Aaron Sparrow right there on HBO Go here in the Philippines.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, it was an exciting moment. Like I've been living with this for over a year. Waiting for this to come out, and because you write these things so far in advance, and it was really nice to finally see it out in the world.
Well, let's get to some things that aren't quite so happy. Let's get right to this tweet by Tom Revort, which I find incredible that anybody would actually admit this. This is the number 2 guy at Marvel Comics. He's the guy below CB Cebulski. And you wonder why Marvel Comics has a quality issue. This is what Tom Revort had to say about Free Comic Book Day. I went out to the comic shop today for Free Comic Book Day and realized that the last time I had been in a comic shop was last year's Free Comic Book Day, and that I still had unread books from that trip. I am flabbergasted that one of the top people at Marvel Comics has not even visited a comic shop in like a year at this point, and he doesn't even read the books that he actually got.
The number 2 guy at Marvel. He's a solid number 2, isn't he? I'm not as shocked. I'm not as shocked as you because when you're at Tom Breevort's rarefied level, and you can tell that he believes that he is above the rabble just from his activity on Twitter and the way that he talks to customers and about customers. You can tell that he has a high level of contempt, as many of the longtime professionals do, whenever they talk about the fans, the customers, the man babies that dare to buy their product. So with the level of contempt that he has for your average reader, I'm not surprised that he doesn't go and mingle with them in the comic book stores. That would be beneath him in his mind. Unfortunately, keeping a finger on the pulse of your customer base and what they want and what they like and what they desire is essential to keeping your business running successfully, which I think tells us a lot about the current situation at Marvel.
Yeah, and don't even take into mind that this is where the readers are. This is where people are talking about what's going on in comics, what's working, what's not working, what comic characters at Marvel are hot right now, which ones that could use a little bit of TLC or whatnot. But retailers who are out there, and I see a lot of them defending Marvel and DC, and I've heard from them behind the scenes, like, yeah, I know the quality's not really there, but this is my product. I think they're doing the best they can. They're trying their hardest. Like, this would be a slap in the face from Tom Brevoort. No, they're not trying their hardest. They're not doing the best they can. This guy is skating by, doing the least amount of work possible. He's not even going up and checking on his products or the customers, that depend on his company. I can't believe that he would be able to put something like this out and not delete it at least. Where's the shame?
He's not supporting the retailers that his product goes out to. He's not talking to them. He's not even showing up to buy a couple books, throw a couple of coin their way. It's not surprising, but it's also, very shocking in a way. It's just kind of gross.
And it's not like comic book fans know who Tom Brevoort is. They probably didn't even know that he works at Marvel Comics. He's got that stupid hat or whatever. He could go in there, nobody would notice him, and maybe he could find out why Miles Morales Spider-Man, despite making $1 billion in movies, can't sell a fucking comic book right now. What are you doing wrong? Why aren't Captain America and Iron Man and the Avengers comics doing much better than they are right now, as they should be? If he went out there and actually talked to people, I guess he would have to live with the fact, or even own up to the fact, that they've made some really terrible choices with the direction of these characters, and maybe they would have to put some effort into actually fixing them.
Well, he'd have to listen to the opinion of plebs, and he's not going to do that because they're right, he's right, the direction that they're heading in is right. Despite the fact that sales and fans and customers, are all telling them that they're heading in the wrong direction, they're not going to admit that they're wrong. Unfortunately, the guy's been in the business too long. He's been in that position for too long. He's lost touch. There's this thing that happens with people who get into these executive positions where they're no longer part of the actual fandom or the collector groups that support them. They've been so far removed from that they do this thing that I call they get up their own ass. That's unfortunately that's the situation at Marvel right now. CB Cebulski, Tom Breevort, they have no idea what the customers want. They don't care what the customers want. They think it's their job to tell the customers what they want. And that's why comics are in such a bad position. When you don't listen to your customers walk away. And you're not going to change their tastes. You're not going to make them come around to what you think they should like. They're telling you what they like. And if you don't listen to them, then you end up in this situation. And I don't have any pity for it. The people that I reserve my pity for are the poor retailers who are having to try to sell this dreck. And the company just doesn't care. Tom Brevoort doesn't even care enough to go into a comic book store and talk to retailers. What makes you think he cares whether or not you can sell a book?
Well, I bet a lot of retailers right now are hoping that Marvel is going to fix this paper problem they have. Not the paper shortage, the fact that they're essentially printing comic books on tissue paper, toilet paper. Even the cover stock is that bad. But it's not going to happen because obviously he's too busy not reading comic books and CB Cebulski is too busy looking for the perfect egg roll. Now, I did get this message from one of the viewers. They talked about their comic shop in Australia, and this is the update that their comic shop had sent out in an email to people with pull lists. Listen to this, Aaron. It's absolutely insane. It says, new direction, updates and news. We are changing our focus to back issues. The last couple of years have seen huge increase in international shipping costs. We've also had a decrease in the quality of new comics while also seeing these new comics increase in price. We have made the decision to stop ordering in new release single issues. Why the change? Over the last 6 to 12 months, we've seen a steady decline in the interest of new release issues while also seeing an increase in our back issue catalog. The same people are still buying some new comics, but far less than they were, while also picking up back issues, hardcovers, omnibuses instead. We are receiving and sorting out back issues. The older, the more fun it is. So you have a comic shop in Australia that has given up on new comic books. You've talked about the comic shops that you work in California have done the same thing. When you have Tom Brevoort in a position like this, who could care less about the direct market, could care less about the state of comic books themselves, you have people just decide to walk away from the product. And we're not talking about customers. We're talking about fucking retailers.
Yeah, look, Marvel needs to be flushed clean from the top down. They need new leadership. They need new editors. There's some good editors there, but there's a lot of dead weight. There's a lot of people that have been in the industry too long. There's a lot of people that just are phoning it in, going through the motions, and they need new hungry talent. They need people who and unfortunately in this industry, new hungry talent is like guys in their 30s and 40s. Because that's you have to have had some time to build up some life experience and some maturity and some professionalism in order to do this right. So they need to flush out the old guard. They need to just restaff this company and have a new direction that is customer focused, that is focused on telling good stories, that isn't obsessed with identity politics and supporting the current thing and forcing that down readers' throats. They need to get back to just good old-fashioned storytelling, good old-fashioned heroics. And in order to do that, you need to hire writers and editors who understand the nature of heroism and the nature of the hero's journey. And none of these people do anymore. Who in the world would continue to employ Dan Slott, who can't stick to a deadline, who they actually did a documentary piece on that was like, hey, look, this guy is so unprofessional. He can't deliver one script a month on time, and here's how it affects all the people down the line. And the poor letterer has to stay up all night the night before it's due lettering the book because he didn't get the pages in time because Dan just started a cascading effect of failure, on the schedule. It's unbelievable. Marvel is a place where people are just not necessarily failing upward, but just failing continuously and continuing to have a job. The fact that Jordan White has buried the X-Men after they had Jonathan Hickman come in and give them probably their last chance at reviving that franchise, the very last chance. And Jordan White populated the books with a bunch of clowns who have driven away readers with their terrible, uninteresting, scripts. and lack of imagination is unbelievable to me. Like, why is this allowed to happen? And I think it's just because it's all under this big umbrella of Disney, and Papa Disney's got money, and Disney unfortunately is focused on other things, and they're not looking at the bottom line of Marvel Comics, which they need to do. Every aspect of your business should be scrutinized, and it's like, okay, well, what are you actually doing for us?
Well, in the case of Tom Brevoort, probably just setting a really bad example. It's like you mentioned, he's the one that's laughing about Dan Slott's ineptitude and the fact that he can't keep a schedule. Tom Brevoort knows all about it, but can't make any types of changes. And you know what really sucks, Aaron? There are people in the comic book industry that love comic books, that would try their hardest and would do everything that they could. They would give their blood, sweat, and tears to make Marvel Comics the best that it possibly could be. But Tom Brevoort apparently is in that position in perpetuity, no matter whether he likes comic books anymore, no matter whether he wants to be part of the comic book community or whatever. And he's sitting in that position, and Marvel is just dying on the vine while other people are champing at the bit to get in there. And eventually they move on to other opportunities, because you can tell Marvel just isn't going to move on from a guy like Tom Brevoort, even though he appears to bring little to nothing to the position that he holds.
It's just absolutely rudderless. And, people ask me, they say like, oh, you were really critical, of Marvel when you were on with Wes. Aren't you afraid that you're not going to get work there? I don't care if I ever get work at Marvel. Like, in its current state, why would I want that? Why, when Vita Ayala is steering the ship creatively on X-Men, why would I care to be a part of that? I don't want to be connected to those stories. I don't want to have to deal with that continuity. I would want to deal with if I was going to work at Marvel, I would want to work at the Marvel of yesteryear, when I actually cared, and the characters were actually treated with care, and the editors actually oversaw their different franchises and made sure that they were consistent. And if they crossed over with another book, if X-Men crossed over with Avengers, both those editors had to get together and make sure all the characterizations were consistent, and that the writers were keeping everything, on track, and that, Rogue was portrayed the same from issue to issue, and Wolverine was portrayed the same from issue to issue. That's the Marvel that I care about. This current incarnation of Marvel, which is just lazy, inept, and just depressing, I have zero interest in.
The worst part is DC is not even putting up a fight anymore. Look at one point they were going to be really going after Marvel and trying to put out some really good stuff, and they just waved the white flag, got rid of all their good creators, and they're just as rudderless as Marvel Comics. And it sucks, because I love comic books. I cover comic books every single day here on my channel. And, I do read manga, but I don't want to cover manga every single day, because while I like manga, I don't love it like I do comic books. But I can tell, like Tom Brevoort and Jordan White and, C.B. Cebulski over at Marvel, they could give two fucks about Marvel and the quality of the comic books that they're coming out. There's no reason that I should care more about this stuff than they should, because my livelihood doesn't really depend on the quality that Marvel Comics put out. You know what I mean?
Well, neither does theirs, because they're basically civil servants at this point. They can't be fired, no matter how inept and incompetent and uninterested they are in their job. They're just locked in there, apparently, which is ridiculous. And as for DC, I'm hearing back channel through a lot of different people that people like Sean Gordon Murphy, Katana Collins, Jeff Johns, people who can actually sell books, can't get an email returned from DC. And instead, you've got, I don't want to go into naming a bunch of writers that shouldn't be there, but you've got a bunch of writers that shouldn't be there that are just getting work handed to them. And it's
Vita Ayala led an event book, a Wonder Woman event. She led an event for the fucking Trinity, man.
Yeah. I mean, T. Franklin can go out there and vilify people who are working at the company, and she's still getting work. Instead of freaking Jeff Johns giving you a pitch that would actually get readers interested, people would actually buy the book, but instead you're just handing it off to these no talents who don't move product. And the only thing that I can think of is that the editors there have gotten so overworked and possibly so lazy that they just hand things to people who they know will answer the phone on the first ring. It's you can hand something to somebody and they're going to deliver it on time. It's not going to be good. It's not going to sell, but at least you didn't have to deal with somebody creatively because you just handed it off and you didn't care. If Jeff Johns gives you a pitch, that's probably more work. If Sean Gordon Murphy gives you something, he's probably got a lot of ideas about how this should be presented. You've probably got to have meetings with him, and you've probably got to actually do your frickin' job. And nobody wants to do that, or nobody has time to do that. I don't want to say that the editors are all bad, because it could just be that they are just so overloaded that they can't do anything except hand stuff off and get it turned in and not proof it and just push it through. That could be what we're dealing with, but that's a problem from the top down again. So you've got to clean house, you've got to restructure, and I think it's coming for DC, and we'll see what happens.
We mentioned a couple of times talking about the Dan Slott, Tom Brevoort documentary video from Disney Plus. It felt more like a hit piece. If you don't remember what this is, or you didn't know about it, you got to check this out. Tom Brevoort basically just laughs about how stupid and incompetent Dan Slott is. Unbelievable stuff here.